right, we are live on Office Hours, and I am super excited to see you guys. We are not only broadcasting on Facebook, but we're also broadcasting on Instagram, and I'm so excited to see you guys tonight because I know as real estate agents, you're going to learn some practical, really into the weeds, the real expertise of real estate on tonight's show. If it's your first time watching, my name is Donaldson. Welcome to the show. We are, as you can see, here in my office, and we've got a lot of exciting stuff for you. I'm going to introduce tonight's guest, who I've been picking his brain for like the past 15 or 30 minutes before the broadcast, and I've already learned stuff, so I'm super excited to share with you guys all of the things that we've learned and what you're going to learn tonight. But first, I want to talk specifically real quick. I've got a special announcement, and that is for any of my Louisiana friends with a real estate broker's license. In case you haven't gotten the memo, I'm assuming that you have, but in case that you haven't, it's important that you guys understand that as a broker, a real estate broker in Louisiana, there's a special rule this year that the Real Estate Commission put into effect. So it's got a couple of things. Number one, there is a broker-specific mandatory course. So you've got two mandatories, the broker mandatory and the regular mandatory. So that's the first thing I want you guys to know about. And the second is a special announcement on Tuesday, August 15th at Donaldson Real Estate School at our Metairie headquarters, right down the hallway here from my office. We're going to be hosting a free broker mandatory course. That's right, 100% free for the first 50 that sign up that have an active real estate broker's license. I'm going to throw you a bonus, if you will, do you a favor, try to help you get that mandatory course out of the way, and literally no hidden charges. I'm not going to charge you a thing. Tuesday, August 15th, if you're an active real estate broker, you need to take that live broker mandatory, and we've put one on the schedule absolutely free of charge for you. So please come join us August 15th. The seats are already filling up. We'll post the link to how you can sign up for the broker mandatory later on in the show. So tonight's office hours is all about avoiding home inspection nightmares. Because if you're a real estate agent, surely you at some point in your career have had a nightmare with an inspection. Either it was a nightmare the way the inspection and what the inspector found. It was a nightmare based on how your client may have responded. Maybe it caused the buyer and seller to not so much disagree anymore and caused the transaction to fall apart. So what I'd like to do is introduce our guest, and we're going to talk about some very specific items to look for, some common nightmares, some issues that cause us problems in the field. So without further ado, let me introduce my main man, Mike Turner of Michael J. Turner Home Inspections. How you doing, my friend?
Good. It's great to be here.
Now, let me tell you a little bit about Mike. So the reason I trust and I like to ask, and I wanted to bring Mike on to help you guys with this topic, is he teaches the home inspection courses here at our school. And so literally he's on the front lines of getting that knowledge out there to those that want to become home inspectors. So obviously he's got a lot going on. He's also got a past in air conditioning contracting, electrical contracting. You used to be a general contractor. So you kind of come from a pretty diverse background as a home inspector, right?
Since I was 16, I started in the construction field and got my associate's degree out here. Homes and doing renovations and commercial strip malls on the side of the 2008 after the housing bubble crash on the side of home inspection.
And it's been good to you. It's,
really.
I mean,
6 years.
I certainly trust you because I understand, and all of us do, how important that inspection process is. Because part of what we're going to talk about tonight is we know in the modern age of real estate, most of our transactions end up being a quote-unquote as-is transaction, which means if I'm buying a house and I'm waiving my right to sue if there's a defect later, somebody like you coming in and performing a professional inspection is a huge deal. That knows what they're looking for, that's going to be meticulous, right? That's going to make sure that they don't miss the big stuff. And I've always liked that you have an electrical background because of how important electrical systems are, especially in older houses. And then, in addition to that, air conditioning. Because how important is air conditioning in August down here in South Louisiana, like New Orleans? So what I want you guys to understand is, okay, so I'm hearing our background music hasn't turned off yet. Now I think we turned it off. I think we got it. Sorry about that. Thank you for posting that, my friends. I didn't realize our background music was still playing. So in any event, so my guest here, Mike Turner, what I wanted to talk to you about and what I wanted you to share with our office hours audience is a few of the common defects that sometimes look like they're major, sometimes may not be a big deal at all, or many times they're somewhere in between. And we were kind of kicking back and forth about some common things to look for and some common issues that come up. And the first thing that rolled off your tongue, the first thing that came up was the subject of mold.
Yeah.
And I think that here in South Louisiana, we certainly have plenty of issues with mold. Yeah. We've got the perfect climate for it, right? We've got a lot of old properties, but I think there's a lot of misconceptions about mold. So for starters, share with the audience and talk about, as a home inspector, when you go into a property, how does it work in terms of identifying mold, putting it in the inspection, and then how do you even know if it's toxic or if it's no big deal?
Well, first of all, most home inspectors shouldn't be titling it mold or mildew. What they need to do is just say a microbial growth, and or a stain. Now, I was reporting that before the state actually took law into effect, saying that we have to report on this condition. We always have stains and these, microbial growth conditions, especially around AC condensate lines, AC ductwork, seals in the window that's broken. Take a look at your window stool or your window seal. At the bottom, you'll see water condensate there. So these are common, okay? Right at the flashing points or roof penetrations, you'll see neoprene rubber boots starting to deteriorate, lead jacks that are missing, it's been caulked temporarily, and you'll see some stains inside the attic as well. So when you see those conditions, you just note the stains. Now the thing is, as long as you communicate it properly to the client, there shouldn't be any problem. Say, look, it's not a big deal. You don't need to call in, the group to come in and clean up the whole situation. And I think most of it is really a communication. Just letting the client know, this is the situation and this is how you should address it. We're not here to make repairs or tell people how to repair it, but verbally on the side, we do that.
Well, so if I'm hiring a home inspector, tell me, is every home inspector a mold expert?
No.
So a home inspector, just a baseline with that license, with their expertise, they're looking for possible signs of mold and noting that on the report, or mildew or other substances, right?
Right.
But in order to, how do I know that it's mildew or toxic mold if I see something on the wall behind the washing machine?
Well, you don't, okay?
Right.
Without a sample. Now, that's what I do. I actually do the sampling. I don't do the mold remediation. I just do the sample and the testing. I bring it into the lab, and then they'll tell me, okay, this is cladosporium, this is, penicillium. They'll tell me the specific mold. Either way, it's all a fungus. It's all going to affect you the same way, more so than, with sinus conditions and irritated throats. Look from a drip or a leak inside, underneath the kitchen sink, okay? You may see some film build up, like a white powder, okay? That might be on the base of the cabinet. Yes, we have to report on it, but I was called out to do a sample because someone had reported this in their, in their page, and it says, okay, we need to get this checked out. Well, I took a couple of swabs, brought it back to the lab, found it out. I told the lady, I said, look, just wipe it down, and you'll be done.
But you did that after having brought it to the lab to confirm that it wasn't toxic black mold or something else, right?
Correct, yes.
I mean, even if you're 95% sure, you never really know, right?
That's right.
But at the same rate, I've seen this a lot where it's dirt, it's mildew, it's maybe a type of mold that isn't as dangerous as what's known as the toxic black mold. In other words, a lot more times than not, it's not a deal breaker, right?
No.
But when people see that on the report, they tend to freak out. They tend to get upset. They tend to want money back. They tend to think, oh, I can't buy this house because it's infested with mold. So, once we get that inspection report as an agent, what's your best advisement on us? Communicate with both the inspector and the client, and what else can we do to help them understand how serious or not serious this problem is?
Well, take it for instance, a washing machine that had a leak behind there. I went behind an inspection. When I looked behind the washing machine, I seen this big black stain. Okay, sure, it was wet.
It's not going to look good. Yeah.
So at that point, it was large enough. It was more than 3 foot by 3 foot. 3 square feet.
Right.
So it says it's time to call in the insurance, and it was fine because the seller living there was able to contact Allstate and make those repairs for him, and everything was remediated, and they moved in fine. Smaller items, I wouldn't be too concerned. Do you have to test it? I don't think you have to test for everything. You really don't, except for some small areas. And like I said, if you explain it to your client, the realtor, and the sellers, logically, and use some common sense, you don't have to. We know the AC condensate is going to sweat. We need to take preventive causes and insulate that, and support the ducts off the insulation and stuff, so we're not condensating. And as long as we can prevent the cause, then the cleanup's pretty, fairly easy. So no, I don't think you have to call for a sample or remediation on every single item.
Yeah. No, I think that's a great point, because I think that, especially like first-time home buyers, if they've never seen an inspection report before, your job is to note stuff that even could have the existence of mold, could be, maybe. You take pictures, you put it in the report. It doesn't mean it is. Right. It doesn't mean it's going to be dangerous. It doesn't mean it's a problem, but it's something that causes concern with buyers, right?
Right.
So do you find that's an issue you end up having to explain to a lot of buyers when they see that in the report?
My job is to report the condition and educate my buyers. As long as my buyer understands, what's going on. The other day, we had some water dripping between the brick and the slab. I knew there was a broken line in there. It has to be. It's just pouring water out. So I said, look, fix the leak, cut this sheetrock out, treat it with a local chemical. It's small enough that either the seller or, my customer, my client can do. And they were happy with it. They moved on and they closed.
That's awesome. And that's what we as real estate agents want to hear, right? We want to hear that we're all good, the problem's not that big of a deal, and off we go, right?
Right.
So yeah, I think mold is a big one, because at the end of the day, even the seller on their disclosure form may not know what's in their house, whether it's mold or whether it isn't. The only thing they can really know is if they've had mold remediation done before, right? And they would indicate that on the disclosure form. So I think that's one of the values of an inspector, but it's also important to, and what I would share with my agent friends out there is, I think that Mike touched on it, and that is communicate with your buyers ahead of time. Let them know there's going to be that section on the report. Let them know that Mike, who I know is very careful and meticulous, is going to note stuff that likely isn't mold, but just in case, by law, he's required to make you aware of it.
Correct.
And then that's why the EPA disclosure is there about mold, to help you understand the different types, what the risks are of some, what some that aren't. And I think mold is one of those big ones. So avoiding nightmares, it's about communication, and it's about just understanding that not everything is a disaster, right? And even if it is toxic mold, remediation may not be a huge nightmare, depending.
Dependent, right. Like I said, I've seen it where, the cabinet had some stains on it, and it was just from a plumbing drip, okay, that's been repaired.
Right.
A little warm, soapy water would be just fine for that.
Right.
Now just remember, bleach doesn't kill mold. Bleach is a germicide, okay? So if you're going to use anything, you want to use something like a fungicide. Some people say Joe Max and some other chemicals as that.
Wait, hold on. I want to stop right there, because I think that's like an old handy-down remedy. Bleach kills everything, right?
Yeah.
It doesn't kill mold. No. So it's really important, if you know you have mold, you haven't remediated it by taking a bunch of Clorox bleach and spraying it off.
It'll definitely whiten it, but it's not going to get to the actual the roots of the spores.
And
inside.
that's not
Correct, yeah.
Now it's even harder to see, because now you've bleached it.
Well, it'll come back if the leak is still active.
Gotcha. Yeah, if the water source or the moisture source. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Let's move on to the next one, because in addition to mold, we also have soft soil conditions down here by the mouth of Mississippi River. And the next nightmare that we hear about all the time are foundation issues.
Yeah.
Foundation cracks, settlement issues, things like that. We all know, especially in South Louisiana, you could close a door in the winter and then it may not close in the summer or vice versa. Windows. So let's talk a little bit about foundation issues. Number one, home inspector. Do you guys do basic checks for foundation and settlement issues, things of that nature?
Oh yes, It's part of the standards of practice to look at the foundation and structure.
And so, how do you do that? What are you looking for?
Well, we're looking at a lot of things.
All right.
I mean, depending on the structure, most of them are wood framed homes. Okay, have a brick veneer, have some stucco on these, some vinyl siding. The vinyl siding is going to be a little bit more difficult to look at. We're going to have to go into the attic. Okay, see the framing conditions. Look at the eaves, sight down the eaves and make sure that those aren't pulling away. Look at the walls, see if they're bowed out or something like that. The raised foundations, those are the easiest. You find more damage, you find more conditions, mostly with the raised homes, but not so much with the slabs. The slabs are going to have three types of settlement. You're going to have a uniform settlement, a tipping settlement, and a differential settlement. Okay, now we're real familiar with the differential.
Yeah, I was about to say, you're talking about terms that none of us know, man. Don't blow our brains over here.
All right, just picture a house just dropping completely straight down. That's a uniform settlement. You will not see cracks. Tilting, okay, where the house just tilts over like that, you will not see cracks. Okay. The second one is the differential, where one side wants to do this way and the other side wants to go this way, and that's when you see the step cracks. Okay. The other day my wife was looking for some homes to renovate. We were down in Kenner, and she said, "Oh my God, baby, this house has a big crack, and it's all the way up this way, and it's all the way up this way." I come over there, I said, "Oh, no problem. We can buy this house. Let's do it."
So how do you know?
It just takes years of experience.
Okay.
I do train in the course. We do have, sections in the course that tells you, how to identify step cracks, how long it's been there. I walked on one on Franklin Avenue. I think it was Elysian Fields. Lady was rocking on the porch. Had a crack about 1.5 inches. I asked the lady, I said, "Lady, how long have you been here?" "Ooh, 20 years, honey." I said, "Okay, well, that's good. How long has this crack been here?" "As long as I can remember." That's a good sign. And I can tell by the brick. It's, the brick that has open has spider webs in it.
Well, so what would we see, or what would you look for, and what would be a giant red flag that there's a serious issue that likely needs to be investigated further? That might be a quote-unquote deal killer, or at least a deal stopper, while major repairs are going to be needed. What would we see to know this is really bad?
It's not often, but
okay.
I do see it every now and then. You're looking at the framing. Okay, we're going into the attic. We're looking at the frame. We're looking at the walls. Okay, if you add up all the cracks, let's say an 1/8 inch crack and a 1/4 inch crack, and you have numerous amounts of multiple cracks, you add them all up. Okay, and you see us inside, and you can see that the framing is bowed, and we have some sagging and depressions in the roof. All of this correlates to some foundation issues. Now, determining is not going to be our job. Okay, but I usually let my customer know, hey, look, you have some depressions, you have some sag. It's not a big deal. You're looking probably about $4,000 or $5,000 to get this, fixed up, and you should be fine. And it's only because I'm a contractor. I understand what the prices are.
Right.
I do it all the time. Okay. Other areas,
Well, when do we need to bring in the shoring company, the engineer? Let's talk disaster. When are you like, this is not good? Bring in the cavalry.
I would say 1 out of every 50, maybe 100 homes, I might see that.
Well, so what's the bad one? So how do we know it's really bad? Of all these different terms that I already forgot, where you're selling this way, you're selling this way, you're selling that way, when do we know it's a serious issue?
You'd have to see the exterior of the walls and the interiors of the walls. Okay, we can check windows, we can check doors. Okay. If one door is stuck, it's not a bad deal, but you start seeing, 5, 6, 7 doors that stick, 3 or 4 windows that's, pushing in, you try to can't get them open.
Right.
That's something the realtors can do.
Right.
And once they find there's 4 or 5 of them, they can raise that question. You know what? Maybe I ought to just call somebody just to come out here and take a look before we put this on the market.
I'm going to stop you right there.
Okay.
Because one of the most important things I want to make sure that our realtor audience and our real estate agents know out there is what you're supposed to do and what you aren't, right? So we're going to talk about red flags, because this comes out of Easton versus Strasburger from '86, which is if I take a listing and I'm walking through it and something looks incredibly obvious, like it could be a major problem, then I'm required to make sure that that's disclosed to potential purchasers. However, we're not supposed to go actively searching for problems. There's a big difference between the way Mike Turner's going to look at a house and the way Chris Donaldson's going to look at a house. I'm not going to go in there and go climb in the attic and try to find signs of whatever,
right?
Because I'm not qualified to do that. So when you talk about the windows and stuff, what I would suggest is if you notice, like, man, something's weird. All the doors don't open and close right. All the windows. Ask the seller what they know about it. Ask the seller if they have any information. That's where you want to go. You want to ask the seller what they know or what they don't know. It's ultimately their knowledge, right? So that would be maybe a sign.
That would be.
But I would not suggest that agents go through their listings in all of their houses and open and close all the windows. I'm gonna draw the risk management line right there.
That's our job.
Yeah, that's your job. So for you guys out there, it sounds like you're being super agent, but you can tell Mike is so comfortable with that and understands it, but I may not, because I may have trouble opening a window and it might be old paint. Right?
Yeah.
And I'm going, oh my God, there's a foundation
None of
issue.
the windows are opening.
Right.
What's going on?
And they're just painted shut with old lead paint or whatever.
Right.
So
Right.
I think that if you're aware of it, it's something that should be discussed and possibly disclosed. But I think it's up to somebody like you, which is why we have home inspectors, to come in and help us figure that problem out.
Right. Now, a lot of the home inspectors use a tool called a zip level, and they'll actually do an elevation, okay? Mm-hmm. It's not the elevation that we always talk about to see which you found,
like with flood insurance, your
base
base flood elevation,
correct.
Right?
We just want to see with the slab, how much have the slab moved or if it's moved at all.
And so you're checking for differential between front, back, left, right, or east, west, whatever.
Correct. Mm-hmm. But it's insignificant to me. It's really for a contractor who's getting ready to come do some work. It allows me to tell what the slabs do, but I've seen homes move 9 inches, and I can show the customer. I say, hey, look, the house moved 9 inches, but you know what? There's no structural concerns. I mean, right there on Transcontinental, they sold a house to a doctor that had 9 inches out. But I told her, I said, ma'am, you feel free to get an engineer, but I don't see any problems with this. And 3 engineers come out, and they all said it was fine. So,
well, that might have failed what I call the golf ball test, which is I would just take a golf ball and release it on the wood or tile floors, and if it rolls to the front or to the side, then I know the house is leaning a little bit. So that one might have failed my test, but it's good to know that it may not have been that big of a deal. All right, let's talk about the third big one. The third big one, and probably one of the most common major issues, is termites.
Oh, yeah.
And wood-boring insects, things like that.
Right.
Because down here in the South, we've got some pretty serious termite swarms at times. And so let's talk a little bit about that. So, number one, the same question. Do all home inspectors check for signs of wood-boring insects?
No. Most of them can tell you if there's any damage.
Okay.
So, if they're not licensed, through the Louisiana Department of Agriculture and WDIR, they'll just go ahead and put down, wood-destroying insects. And that's allowed to say that into the report. They can't state it's a termite or a specific item, because when we come out and do a termite or give you the certificate at the end of the home, we'll tell you we're looking for 6 items. Okay, there's 6 insects that's going to destroy your house. Number 1, dry wood termites. Okay, the presence of them is almost, you're never going to see them. All you're going to see is the fecal matter that's left behind. We call it frass. Okay, FRASS. Then you have the subterranean termites. Okay. Then you have, of course, the Formosan termites. Those are like the killer bees.
Right.
Okay? They're very aggressive termites. We have carpenter ants, which really doesn't cause too much damage, but it is a damaging insect. Carpenter bees, and then post powder. Now, the carpenter bees drill perfect half-inch holes into wood. So if you're not staining it, you're not treating it with a weather guard, priming it or painting it, those insects are probably going to take over that. Now, most of the termite damage that I do see underneath homes and even, at the foundations, is usually superficial. Okay, it hasn't caused enough damage, but I have seen some where it was this nest that was tearing it up. They like to get behind spray foam. for sure.
Spray foam, yeah. Well, so when you hire an inspector, some have certifications as termite experts and some don't, right? So a lot of times if we want a termite certificate or to know, we need someone that's certified to actually look a little bit deeper with their knowledge as to whether something is active termites or carpenter ants or whatever the case may be, right?
Correct.
And then number two, how do we know if it's a disaster or no big deal?
Well, the termite man's not going to tell you.
Okay.
It's just going to go down on the comment section 9A of the WDIR.
So what do I do if I'm an agent or I have a buyer and they put this could be a problem? Who do I call?
Well,
what do I do?
I mean, you can call me for sure. I mean, I can write you a contractor's letter and get you out of most of them. Now, I do have some banks and insurance companies that tell me to go out to the property and says, oh, look, they found termite damage. We need to know if it's structural. Okay, well, I'll go out and check it out. And when I get there, of course, there's pinholes from the, termites eating through the drywall. But if they don't remove that drywall, I can't see the extent
So you need
of
to do an
damage.
invasive inspection.
That's right.
Right.
And sometimes, HUD's not going to allow me to do that. The seller don't want me to tear it out.
Right.
Those things. So that restricts me. So you're not getting a letter from me until I see. Now, I know personally, just from experience, I can probably pull out that drywall. You're probably going to have a little bit of eaten header, a couple of 2x4 studs, things like that. But I'm not saying it. I know it. If I was buying a house, I'd jump on it like that and say, yeah, I'll take it.
So these three major issues in South Louisiana, we pulled them. I think you were on 2 roofs today in the August heat, and then came in here to talk to you guys. So, by the way, those of you that are watching live, give Mike your love. Give him, tell him thank you for giving us his time. I mean, the guy has had a long day as it is. He's probably going to go type up inspection reports when he's done.
Yeah, well, that's why you said, man, you're dragging ass. You all right? I'm tired. I'm hot.
Yeah, this is a tough time of year to be out there in the
hot,
heat, in attics, in crawl spaces.
And it were 2 large homes over 4,000 square feet, so.
Well, so we talked about mold, foundation cracks, and termites. And your pervasive kind of opinion and attitude seems to be, more often than not, it may be some sort of a problem, but it's not a major disaster.
Right.
In many cases, right?
Almost all of them.
Well, talk to me about, so as real estate agents, we do have that law for the red flags. Like if we see something that's obvious there could be a problem, then we need to investigate further, find out from the seller, disclose it. So let's talk about red flags that us as real estate agents, an untrained guy like Chris, that's not a home inspector, that's not a contractor, mold. Give me like the number one thing to identify this could be dangerous mold. How do I know the difference between dangerous mold and mildew? Well, just give me something.
I mean, if you see black, it's starting to turn purplish green.
Purplish green. That doesn't sound good.
You start to see some, I guess you can say fuzz growing off the material, whether it's drywall or wood or anything like that. It's time to be concerned. When you walk in and that odor hits you, and it's so strong it's burning your nostrils, it's time definitely there's some problems.
Well, I'll tell you, I had a friend not too long ago that went through that, and he was feeling awful for weeks on end, and he couldn't figure out what was wrong. He felt awful. He's having respiratory issues, all of this stuff. Come to find out that his upstairs at his house had a mold problem, a serious one, and it was literally making him ill. But it was all in the AC and so forth.
Yes.
So don't misunderstand. Mold is not something to fool with. But for us as agents and when we're dealing with our sellers and buyers, we just, for untrained eyes like us, what's the obvious signs? Sounds like if it's got multiple colors, if it looks like a fungus instead of just dirt, it may be worth looking into, right?
Correct. Yeah. Lots of times you'll see them at the ceiling register vents. Okay, you'll see some black. Mine sweat all the time, okay? Now, I'm not growing any kind of conditions, but, of course, we don't pop covers off, you know? And, of course, that would be a great thing to do, but that would, require a lot more time. But just popping the cover off and looking in there, you're seeing some stuff, then you say, you know what, it's time to get these ducts clean. We got, the AC condensating. There's rust in the pan. Apparently, it's leaked before. I wonder if it's affected the ductwork. Those kind of things. But most of it's just deferred maintenance.
What about the foundation issues? How, you talked about the windows and the doors, but what, other than the house obviously being, leaning like this, what's a telltale sign that there could be a serious settlement or foundation integrity issue with the slab? What's something to look for?
On a slab, the floor covering's covering most, but any visible evidence of, and I'm not talking a tile being cracked. If you can take your finger and smoothly, just gently cross over it and it's smooth and it would come back together perfectly, it's probably not an issue, okay, like a pencil line or eighth of an inch crack. But you start to see tile that's buckling up. You see wood floors buckling up. Those are definitely signs of structural
buckling
issues. Buckling, yes.
Okay. So if it hasn't been flooded, which would cause it to buckle, then we're going, uh-oh.
Right.
So that's a good one. That's something to look for.
It is, but I've also seen it where the installers nailed it so tight to the wall and it expanded, it buckled. So
wow.
It wasn't nothing to do with the foundation. It was strictly to do with the installation.
And then termites. What am I looking for? What's an obvious sign that we might have damage or a problem or even an active colony?
The main thing is keep trees and vegetation 2 feet away.
Did everybody hear that? If you've got like bushes and trees and twigs and stuff up against your house, up against the gutters, up against the brick, that's not a good thing because you're giving them basically an entrance ramp.
Without us noticing.
Uh-huh.
Because even if, let's say you have this big oak tree in the front yard, but the limbs are hanging or extending over the roof and it's touching the roof, I can walk around all day long the slab looking for dirt trails that run up. And guess what? I may not find any. Why? They're coming up the tree, coming down the limbs, going into the roof, and they're in the attic. And that's where I usually catch a lot of them.
Wow. All right, guys. So here we are at 8 o'clock. First of all, let me thank some of my folks that are watching. Rick, what's going on? Pete, thanks for sticking in. Karen, Tracy Turner. Who would that be?
Yeah.
Chelsea, Kendrick, Chan. Thanks for tuning in, guys. We're going to get into the Q&A segment here in a moment. But real quick, before we do that, I want to point out a very important case and something that I think our real estate agents out there need to be aware of. And for those of you that may or may not, as a refresher, in Louisiana, we have a property condition disclosure form, which is common in a lot of states, which is where the owner of the property, the seller, is going to basically fill out a soup to nuts disclosure about everything that they are aware that may be wrong or has been wrong with the property, something like that. So as an example, if it flooded and was repaired recently, you would say, yes, this house has flooded before, it was repaired, here's the information. Or, no, it has never. Or, then there's an NK, I don't know. And what I want you guys to understand is, number one, that's part of the protection for the buyer. So the buyer gets a disclosure from the seller, then they get an inspection report, more often than not, from an inspector. So the buyer's got a really good grip on what may or may not be wrong with the property. But recently in the Louisiana Supreme Court, we had a case that essentially the sellers put no about a particular defect, a major defect. The inspectors did not find this major defect. And this is worst case scenario where after the sale, the buyers brought in a contractor and they brought in a contractor who found a major defect. And the issue is, upon contacting the sellers, they claimed they were never in a position to know about these defects. That's why they put no on the disclosure form. Well, the plaintiff sued, claiming that they were fraudulently induced into an as-is sale, what we call a waiver of retribution, and that it should be void because they had the option to select NK or not known. And by selecting no, it's a definitive, there is no problem, and it turns out that there was. And the Supreme Court said we do not believe a seller can represent a thing to have no defects in order to procure a waiver of retribution and claim that they were not in a position to know whether there were defects or not, as alleged by the plaintiffs, using the waiver of retribution. Essentially, guys, what this is bringing into focus and what I want you guys to learn from this is, first of all, this case is still ongoing. The courts are still trying to figure out what we're going to do here. But if I'm a real estate agent and I'm dealing with my seller and they have the option of, yes, the condition is present, no, it is not, or NK not known, the issue here is you're supposed to fill it out to the best of your knowledge. So if you just put not known for everything, but you did know that there was an issue, you obviously are fraudulent there. If you put no, there isn't an issue, and there is an issue, you're obviously fraudulent there. But the problem here is, what if the seller reasonably doesn't know because they're not an expert, and then they put no, and it's discovered later that there actually is a defect? The issue in Louisiana is that the oldest law in the books says that the seller is responsible for major defects at the time of the sale if they were not disclosed to the buyer. So even with a waiver of retribution or the as-is clause, this case is going to be interesting to watch, because what it's saying is the waiver was not necessarily valid because the seller was not being forthright with the buyers when they signed that waiver of retribution. So it's kind of a landmark case. It's going to be something interesting to watch. So the most important thing for us is to make sure that sellers fill out those forms to the best of their ability, answering each question as honestly as possible. And we're going to have to see how this one shakes out. But I think it's something that's incredibly interesting and something that all of us in the industry are going to want to watch. Certainly any of the lawyers out there that may be watching, you may have some opinions on this. I'll send you a link to the case because I think it's pretty outstanding and pretty interesting, because let's just argue that as a seller, I didn't know the condition was present. But then the courts are saying, well, if you weren't 100% certain that it didn't exist, you should have put not known.
Right.
And I think that's really pretty interesting, and could put these disclosure forms in a position where they may need to be changed, may need to be amended, something like that. So if you want to stay on top of your industry, there's your industry note for today to watch. Again, for any of those that are really sycophants and want to look at the case, I'll give you a link in the thread as soon as we finish. So again, let's move into the Q&A segment. Thank you guys for watching. I really appreciate y'all taking advantage of this live stream, taking advantage of picking Mike's brain. As you can see, he's already said about 15 things that I didn't know, nor did I understand, because he's got such a depth of knowledge. So I want to remind you guys, part of the reason we do the stream live here is so you can ask your questions. So if you have a question, post it in the comments, and I'll bring it to either myself or Mike to answer. You can also use the hashtag office hours on Twitter if you want to ask your question there. So I already have a few questions, as some of you may have seen. And again, we're here until 8:30 or so, depending on your questions. So if you've got questions for Mike, this is your opportunity. Or if you have questions that are not even related to this stuff, but they're real estate related, feel free to ask those as well. So Mike, the first question actually came in on the event page beforehand. And let me pull this question because I think it was a good one. Okay? So Lauren, my friend Lauren asked, a future listing has a visible slope in the foundation, and the sellers are afraid of the cost of those repairs and the effect it'll have on the sale. Yeah. Classic, right?
Correct.
So would you, number one, recommend having an expert examine and give an estimate for the repairs before listing and price the home with those repairs in mind? So some of this I may have to jump in on. Or number two, disclose the problem and wait for the buyer to negotiate after their inspections are completed. People here see foundation and automatically freak out, and I'm trying to manage their expectations. Common, right?
Yeah, yes.
So let's take the inspector's point of view first. What would you suggest that sellers do if they see that visible slope in the foundation?
Well, I'm going to tell you what just took place. I have a realtor who called me up and says,
don't mention any names.
I'm not. I had a realtor who called me. She says, can you come out to my listing? It's difficult for me to sell this home. Mm-hmm. They're not selling. They noticed something wrong with the foundation. Can you come take a look? I said, no problem. Did it after. Came around 5 o'clock, looked underneath. I walked inside. I felt the slope. She showed me. Mm-hmm. I went underneath the house. I seen the damage. I said, you need about $5,000 repair. The problem is this. If you don't use a third party who's unbiased, okay, and you call the contractor, ching, ching, they need a repair. Mm-hmm. You don't always need a repair. Now, if you want to call a third party, such as a structural engineer, do that. Mm-hmm. Okay? Get it ahead of time. Show them those engineers' papers. Nobody's going to dispute it. Mm-hmm. Nobody. Not even a home inspector. Okay? So that's what I would say. Instead of waiting for the buyer, waiting for somebody else inspect it, it's just going to blow the sale.
Well, you talked earlier, number one, that a visible slope in the foundations, even though it looks bad and everybody's definition is different, it might not be that big of a deal.
That's right.
You said, but we don't know unless we get it looked at.
Correct.
And so I think in this case, from a real estate agent's point of view, Lauren, my answer to your question would be, number one, if you're aware of it, it's going to have to be disclosed. So you're going to have to put that on the disclosure form anyway.
Correct.
So every buyer is going to know that there's a slope in the foundation, and you're right, they may freak out or what have you. So most engineering firms are going to come out and do a consultation and usually not charge, right? Or it'll be a reasonable fee?
It'll be a minimum fee, yeah. Definitely disclose it, and then have somebody back it up saying it's okay. Now, if it's not okay, they'll let you know.
And let us know what it's going to cost to repair.
Exactly.
I think it's definitely a good idea to do ahead of time because you're aware of it. It's going to have to be disclosed. You might as well clear up the issue before you put it on the market. And definitely, of course, the pricing of a home, the value you're going to put it out there for in the marketplace is going to be relative to the condition that it is. I'm looking at the question to make sure I didn't miss it. So, Lauren, the value of a property is in its current condition. So when you're considering the pricing, you want to consider that part of the issue, whether a certain amount of repairs as estimated by an engineer or structural engineer. You may want to include that in there. You may want to include it in terms of your pricing, but definitely that's part of the consideration. You cannot make your seller do anything. You can't make them price it any certain way. You can't make them repair it or even pay for repairs. But if they're aware of it, it's going to have to be disclosed, so you might as well address it up front. And I think me and Mike are kind of in alignment on that, and I think that's your best option. So hopefully that answers your question. All right, let's see. We had a couple. Let's see. First of all, Karen had a great response. She said, "Oh my God, I thought bleach killed everything." That's good to know. So we definitely, Karen, I'm glad you tuned in. Now you've learned what so many are. The generation thought bleach was the cause to kill everything. My friend Pete here is asking, how concerned should a client be about a growth near the AC vents, which they commonly see? You kind of touched on that, but let's dive into that again because. So AC vents, right? Sometimes there's soot, sometimes there's dirt, sometimes there's a growth. Talk to me about that.
What normally happens is...
We'll talk to Pete about that since he asked the question.
Pete, look, what normally happens is the AC probably had leaked at one point, okay? The water filled up in the pan, it probably leaked into the emergency pan, and some of the insulation may have gotten wet, okay? Ideally, the best thing to do is to have the removed, okay? But nobody ever does that. They fix the problem of why it was leaking, and then it just continues to flow through the flex duct, the metal. The metal's not as bad. It's easy to get clean. Flex duct's got to be replaced. And then it hits those boxes. Now, inside those boxes, they have that black insulation with a microbial growth component in there, okay? And that's what they do today. Remove the grill vent, pull out the insulation, put it back in. But, as far as just a little bit on the edge, okay, that could just be from condensation and then sitting. Especially a lot of these homes now, they just kind of sit, okay? I mean, mine drip, especially when the kids coming in and out the door all the time, the hot and the cold, it's just condensating.
Yeah.
But it's I keep an eye on it. I make sure there's no problems. I make sure we don't drip or anything like that from the paint. That's the best thing to do. Yeah.
Okay, so, but somebody like you would likely need to be able to, again, tell me whether that's a sign of an issue or not, right?
Well, all these are going to be, all these answers I'm going to give you is going to be on the borderline because it has to be looked at, okay? And like you said, you're not going to have the realtor go in there and open every window and door. They're not going to go up there and pull things apart or do anything.
Not supposed to.
That's not their job.
No.
How concerned would I be? I really wouldn't be too concerned. Okay, most of it is just some small growth.
And so what I would pick up on that is, even if it's not a big deal, when you get to that section on the property disclosure form, it's always best to be honest because anything you disclose, you typically cannot be sued for later. So if I decide independently as a seller, not as an expert, this stuff is no big deal, and I put, no, there's no problem, and it turns out to be a big deal, I could be liable for that. Whereas I note that, I would simply note that on the disclosure and say it looks to be dirt substance or what have you, and that's why then the buyer has the right to bring in Mike and to take a look at it.
Well, even before I start a property, my clients will tell me a few things because they've already walked the property with the agent. They say, look, I'm a little concerned with this, I'm a little concerned with that. I said, I'm going to go deeper into it and see what's going on.
Right.
Let you know.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think that's good. Thanks, guys, for your questions so far. So the bleach is just making me laugh. So thanks, Rick, for chiming in. I know we were looking at And I know it was discussed at a recent meeting about revising the property disclosure. So I was making you guys aware of it. I want my office hours audience to understand that this is an ongoing issue with the yes, the no, the not known, and we're going to see how this shakes out, how the courts interpret it, and so forth. But honesty is always the most important thing. Being complete is the most important thing. Making sure that that disclosure is filled out with any information the seller may know. If it's been flooded before, even if it was 10, 15 years ago, you're better off just putting it there. It flooded in this year. This is what we did. Like, it's amazing to me to this day, just my personal opinion, that there are properties in areas that were part of the main Katrina flooding, and you'll get a disclosure form and it'll say it's never flooded. It's like, wait a minute.
Yeah.
Of course it flooded. But if you put flooded in Katrina and has been completely repaired and remodeled, most people are going to understand that. They know the area that they're in.
Yeah.
But it's still amazing how people will put no. They'll just straight up put no.
I don't know what I would do when I have to fill out one of those when I go to sell my house because I've done so many repairs.
Well, you would just have to take a little bit longer, and you'd have a lot of information that you'd have to give them.
You better call a professional.
Yeah,
Oof.
no kidding, no kidding. All right, guys, if you've got a couple of other questions, this is your chance to ask our resident home inspector here / contractor any of your questions about whether the issues that we talked about, mold and termites and foundation, or anything real estate related, disclosure forms and so on. Again, it's a big part of our business, and I think the reason I brought up that case is because most transactions in modern times have some sort of a waiver, an as-is clause. But it's an important lesson to remind ourselves. We teach this in Real Estate 101, but I want to remind everybody out there, as is means as it is disclosed. And that's what's incredibly important. So if a seller fails to disclose something, just because they get you to sign as is, if you can prove they knew about it, they're definitely liable.
As is disclosed.
As it is disclosed. That's the key. Now, there's exempt parties where that's why a home inspection is so important, because things like HUD homes and foreclosures owned by the bank and those types of things, they weren't the last resident, so they can't fill out a disclosure because the bank it's a line item on the balance sheet. They don't know what's wrong with it. So a home inspection is usually an incredibly important and valuable idea. So, if you've got buyers that are considering buying a house, they're going to sign as is, and they're refusing to get a home inspection because they don't want to pay for it, they just better understand it. It's going to be my explanation to them of the huge amount of possible problems and liability they're opening themselves up for. I'm absolutely make sure that I explain that to all of my clients, my buyers, make sure they know, because you're going to sign that as is. You don't want to be hanging out there you don't want to be hanging out there without a home inspection if you don't have a disclosure. So now you're buying something you don't know if anything's wrong with it from anybody. You're taking a risk,
right?
At minimum. All right, Pete, thanks. You got another great question. Pete's coming with another house about termites.
Okay.
And his question is, if trees overhang a house but aren't touching the roof, is that still somewhat of a concern?
No, as long as it's kept trimmed back about 2 feet.
Really?
Yeah, as long as it's 2 feet. Now, storm conditions is probably not the best thing to have. I wouldn't report it in mine. I would just say, vegetation appears to be closer than normal.
Well, people think about. I think about termites as having wings and swarming and flying.
Yeah, they do.
So when they have 2 feet, so they don't have to just crawl onto the house or whatever. Why is that better? It just help me understand that. Help me understand that, because I don't.
Well, the 2 feet is the amount that when they build a tube. Okay, they can extend out so far. Of course, a piece of dirt mound 2 feet hanging over, it's probably not going to happen.
Right.
Same reason why they come up with the 18-inch rule for electrical. 18-inch rule for the water heaters, the gas water heaters that have to be raised 18, or electric that have to be raised 18 inches. Because the volatile chemicals, the VOCs, the fumes, they figured 18 inches is where it needs to be, and that's going to be safe. So 2 foot is what the key was. No one ever really explained it to me, but just from research and reading, that's what I've concluded.
All right. No, that's good. I mean, Pete, thank you for your question. And look, I'm learning right along with you because that's interesting. We could probably do a whole episode on termites if we wanted to, because it's such a big deal. I mean,
down here it is for sure.
Yeah,
especially when I get these northerns coming in, shooting down to the 9th Ward, buying house. What's a termite?
Right, right.
Okay.
Yeah, you learn when there's different regional issues. Another great example of that is the return, where northerners, depending on where they're from, may have radon issues in their basements.
Correct.
We don't see a lot of that down here, but up there it's a serious thing.
Yeah.
So everybody's got their complications when it comes to real estate.
They have basements. We don't. We have crawl spaces.
That's right. That's right. Because you'd need scuba gear to have a basement in most areas of New Orleans. We've got another great question about roots. And Lauren, yes, thank you for asking. Right here at the end, Mike's going to tell you all the ways you can reach out and contact him. He might even have something special for you guys for watching. So thank you. We'll get to our last couple of questions. Chelsea is asking about tree roots. She said, this comes up a lot lately. Talk to me about tree roots.
I see tree roots all the time against the foundation.
Because those oak trees can do some stuff.
Well, let me tell you something. Most of the trees, like our trees, the hardwoods, even the softwoods, the roots grow on the top of the soil because of, the water that the soil holds.
Right.
Okay, don't have to go down deep. Now, palm trees will go down deep, and that's why it's okay. My palm trees are like 1 foot from my house, but it's not affecting my structure. So you find out an oak tree is sitting right up against there. You know what? It's going to push up against the slab, and it's going to move it a little bit. You may even see cracks there, okay? Is it a structural issue? 9 times out of 10, it's not, okay?
All right.
If the tree's, 100 years old, and then you got these historical districts, you just can't cut these things down. It has to stay there. So as long as it's there and it's being supported, you have to look inside, but most of the time it's not a structural issue.
Mm-hmm.
Not at all.
Well,
you may feel some elevation when you walk in that area. It may be a little high, a little bump.
Mm-hmm.
And of course the client, that's what I'm saying, if the inspector explains it properly to the client, it's not going to cause any problems.
Right.
Okay? And they're going to notice it as just disclose it. There's roots that's on the foundation, and just like you said, if you disclose everything, and then I come in and just confirm, yeah, okay.
Yeah.
I've only seen one case where it actually popped up the whole house, but that was on a raised foundation.
If the roots are already up against the foundation, I mean, do you suggest that anything, because you could really harm a tree by messing with its roots.
Yes, you can.
So,
you can.
I mean,
an arborist would have to come out and take a look at that, but look, my neighbor cut down his trees. Okay, it pushed up all his sidewalks. It pushed up his house. Okay, across the street. He cut it down, and he grinded the roots down, and now it's 15 years later, and his house is back to normal. Now, where he cut and grounded the roots, his cement walkway is sagging, is going down under the ground. So now he's got to lift it up and put some sand underneath it. So that's what happens. That piece of wood that's holding that house up right now, once it rots, it's just going to create, a pocket for it to fall. So it actually becomes worse.
Interesting. Because we certainly have a lot of oak trees and older trees with strong roots and all that kind of stuff down here. It's one of the beautiful features of a lot of these properties.
Right.
I mean, when I was a kid, I grew up in a city that was named Tree City, USA, by the Arbor Foundation, I think, and I always remember that, and I was thinking, wow, we're Tree City, USA, huh? Which means we got a lot of roots damaging foundations, possibly.
That's why when you see after the hurricanes, or the storms, the tropical storms, all you see is just the tree roots sitting there, and there's very little dirt. There's just a little grass on the top because they don't have to go far for water. Our water table's too high.
Absolutely. All right, guys, thank you for your questions. I'll monitor in case y'all have a couple of others, but there's a few things I want to make sure that we get to here as we're closing up the show. Number one, the biggest theme that I'm noticing here is that the reason we call them inspection nightmares is because a lot of times our clients, when I'm the real estate agent, you're the inspector, right? It's that our clients, if they get a copy or they see that report or they talk to the inspector or whatever the case may be, they may lose their minds over something that may not be that big of an issue.
Right.
Number one, that's why you need an inspector. But number two, I think that's why you always want to set expectations and communicate with your client, not just blindly forward the inspection report if for some reason you get it first or whatever the case may be, to where the buyer's like just reading this thing and going, this 40-year-old house is falling apart, and it's actually a pretty standard, inspection with not a lot of big stuff in there.
Whatever you do, read the whole report. Please don't just read the summary page. Read the whole report.
That's good advice.
I know it's more time. Look, Tracy sent me an article from a 2014 issue from Baton Rouge talking about how home inspectors and realtors are working together and or actually doing a little controversy. It was pretty interesting. Just read everything. Don't go too fast. Read everything. I know it's more on the realtors. It's a lot more work. because before home inspections came around in 1999 when we got licensed, it was just boom, sale, and go. Now we got to stop, take all these long arrangements to get these things taken care of.
Well, 100%. But, you know, since we're going to be waiving our rights to sue, the waiver of redhibition, the as-is waiver, I think it's, you know, for the few $100 or whatever you're going to spend for that inspection, it's a no-brainer if you're under contract and considering buying a property, right? That few $100 can save you so much on the back end, right? I mean, it's unbelievable. So, Mike, listen, again, from our office hours audience and also from me, you work a lot. Not only as an inspector, but you teach classes here. You give up weekends. You really are dedicated to both the real estate industry, the home inspection industry. You make this industry a better place. So I want to thank you for your time and for your expertise.
Thank you.
Can you please tell our audience where the best place to find you if they want to reach out to you? And might you have something special that you like to offer to our realtor office hours audience?
Yep. Office hours, okay, for being on this program, I'm going to offer you a 92-page maintenance book, okay? This book is going to give you the life expectancies, the breakdown of now that you had a home inspection, learn how it works, maintain it, and keep up the house. So
that's awesome. So free of charge?
Free of charge. It's a $12 book that I pay for. And I have them in stock right now, so you call up, you mention that you've seen us on Office, and I'll go ahead and give that book to you.
Use the term office hours. That's how you get your free gift. Use the term office hours. So, Mike, your website, is that a good place to go to find out more information and to get?
You can go to my website. I've typed it all up myself, and I haven't updated in a while. I don't have any person doing that, but you can go to Michael J. Turner Home Inspections.
It's TurnerHomeInspection.com. I'll in the show notes we'll put the links to this.
Just look me up at Facebook. Facebook and just Michael J. Turner. You can call the office. Talk to my wife Tracy 504-382-2410 and set an appointment. As soon as you get a contract, though, please call. I mean, we book up about 2 weeks ahead of time. It takes a long time. So.
And because listen, you can tell already, and with his background. Whenever I'm under contract, Mike's the first and only call that I make. You also have, on occasion, other inspectors that work along with you so that you can accommodate more contracts and more agents. Guys, he gets the office hours blessing. He teaches the classes here. Mike is one of the most knowledgeable people I know. So I've got a little present for Mike. And check this out, guys. We might have to have a contest. But I'm going to leave Mike with his very own office hours t-shirt. Check this out. You may have seen me wearing it before, but I'm going to leave Mike with one of these to remind him of how much we appreciate him coming on the show.
I think I'm going to wear that tomorrow.
You should. This will be great outside.
This is my normal uniform, khaki pants and a blue polo shirt. But I'm wearing a t-shirt tomorrow. I'm going to feel much more comfortable.
There you go, baby.
I got 3 tomorrow.
And look, you'll have people stopping on the streets going, I watched that show. Dude, you're my guy. Seriously, we really thank you for giving your time. You don't have to do that. Hopefully you guys out there, y'all learned something. We may have to dive into the risk management issue a little bit. Rick, I'm going to be reaching out to you to talk about that disclosure form. But reach out to Mike. The next time you need an inspection, give him a call. Mention you saw him on office hours. You'll get that free value-added guide, 92 pages, something great that you can provide to your clients. I think that's a home run.
The realtors love him. All my realtors love him.
He's going to offer that to you. I think it's awesome. And if you need an inspector, you might as well call somebody that you know, like, and trust. And Mike's that guy. So thank you guys for watching Office Hours. And we will see you next time with I've got so many things that we're lining up. I can't wait to announce the next episode. If you've got anything that you'd like to see us cover, something you'd like to see me talk about, a guest that you'd like to have on, please use the hashtag Office Hours, comment, message me. I always put this show on and only put this show on for you guys. So let me know what you want to see in the future, and we'll try to make that happen. Thanks, guys. Have an awesome Wednesday, and I will see you next time on Office Hours.